2008, the cost to ride a minibus was $60. However, this fare was considered too low for most drivers to generate a profit. With this in mind, several minibus operators came together to form the United Minibus Union. The group approached the then Minister of Transport for an increase in fares. Their increase was granted. Now, some 10 years later, the minibus drivers are demanding another increase. This $20 increase goes into effect Saturday, September 1st, 2018. While the Ministry of Business has accepted the fare hike, they too have demands. Their demands come in the form of a soon-to-be-released code of conduct for drivers. In this edition of Beyond the Headlines, I take a look at the issues surrounding the fare hike, as well as minibus culture in Georgetown. Route 42 minibus drivers called a strike. This strike was the latest in a series of protests over the years regarding bus fares. The operators wanted a formal increase in fares, and they wanted the government to support them.
We just asking for $20 more on each drop.
Through the United Minibus Union, the drivers began consultations with the Ministry of Business on the matter. 5 months later, they got their wish. President of the United Minibus Union, Ian Andrews, explains what led up to the decision and why he feels that it is a positive move for the industry.
Actually, the $20 apply to, I think, about 13 routes, but not the thing 94, like the Lethem, Madja, Linden, these far routes like Molson Creek. There are some discussions we need to do on that, because obviously they're very far places and there must be some little difference because it's more wear and tear, the distance, the gas and all of that. But the $20 more or less cover like to Mary, or the West Coast, West Bank, and the routes East Coast and the routes around Georgetown. Bartica is also a part of our union. I think they charge $200, but we'll have to talk with them if they're comfortable with that. It's not a matter of just raising things, because Bartica is comfortable with how they are, because they have a more family-related kind of business where you would find a bus putting a bed on top of them to drop it off at somebody who live in 4 mile and these kind of thing, or a bus would wait for persons to come out to store, you know, these kind. It's a different relationship they have there. But it's $20 across the board, really. What was? The thing is that persons would be paying, like there was an increase 2014, where there was a short drop increase to $80. There may not have been a formal signing between the union and the government at that time, even though that in principle we understood that. There was some confusion at the beginning of it, but then people fall into place and they start paying the 80. Not forgetting that there may be some in the right or recalcitrant person who may decide they don't concern, they're only paying 60. Some bus people would say, well, all right, give me the 60. Others are going to argue for their thing, you know, the culture of the people. But the short drop, since 2014, people have been paying $80 for a short drop. You have a place like South, they would take $80 before the bridge, but as long as you go into South, they took $100. Same thing with Sophia up to Dennis Street, they would have taken 80. But as long as you turn into Sophia to these different fields, I don't really know the place, because, you know, they would have been taking 100. Now, the commuters did pay. I don't know if they paid because they didn't have a choice, or that's what was told to them and that's what they did. So, that's how it is.
And so now this $20, does that also apply to short drops as well?
Yeah, short drops.
Okay, so instead of paying 80, I would now pay 100 then.
One ought to be paying 100. Because it would be, as long as there is some formality about it. I think the problem lies where we have a people, and I think they ought to see, you know, they're in the right, is that they want to hear collaboration between their government of the day and probably the minibus service providers representative. They more respond to what they would call a formal or declaration. If it is left vague, you got confusion. But our negotiation with the government was premised a lot on the traveling public ability to pay. Because, to be honest, there are a lot of families that might have many kids and so on. But then there's a cutback, I think, that should be disclosed from the government, the business ministry, that children will pay less. So we try to maintain what was as it relates to those children. But one has to take into consideration that there are a lot of operational costs, a lot of buses in the country and these kind of things that affect the sector, but people just seem to be buying buses all the time. The question may be asked, who gains? Whether the owner gain, or whether the conductor gain, whether the driver gain. What we know is that I don't know, there's no word like that in the dictionary, but they call themselves touts. I think they gain the most, no? Because why some owners may say, well, this thing might be raised, but they won't be gaining. I'm glad to know that some owners can say that because they've been so obscure. You try to reach owners so we could talk. They don't come forward at all. All they do, they give these people these buses, and they expect them to bring in money. They don't care how or what they do, as long as they don't damage the buses. So I think in many instances, owners need to identify themselves.
As expected, the announcement has started a firestorm of debate surrounding minibus fares and the industry as a whole. But in the face of rising costs overall, much of the general public is asking, why now? Consumer Affairs Officer for the Ministry of Business, Krishana Archer, explains.
Last engagement across the board with minibus operators was in 2008. That's 10 years ago. So the union came to us with a proposal asking that we should take a look at the fare structure across the board. Because in 2004, we looked at Route 44, 31, and 32, and a few other routes, but not a holistic approach at the fare structure. And we have recognized, based on number of research, that their operational costs that would have changed. The general landscape of public transportation has changed in 10 years. So the union wanted to have an opportunity to take a look at all of those factors and propose to us a fare increase. And so that is where we came about having the consultations with the union. What consumers need to understand is that 10 years is a very lengthy time to be paying one fare structure. And because time has evolved and moved, and we also have to recognize that there are now more commuters. So now we have a bigger issue. We have more buses, so there's bigger competition. So that is why we felt that it was okay for us to engage with the union at this time. Also, there was a recent unrest as it relates to the fares earlier in the year, and this prompted our minister to take action per se to see where we could help to alleviate some of the issues that were being faced by operators.
The cost associated with operating a minibus is higher than most would believe. Take the Georgetown to Grove Route 44 minibus, for example. The average driver makes about $3,000 round trip with about 7 trips a day, which comes to $21,000. Not bad for a day's work. But you then have to take out $8,000 for gas, $3,000 for a conductor, $6,000 to the owner of the bus. This leaves the driver with about $4,000 to go home with. While it's not as nice as $21,000, it is still better than minimum wage, which would earn you about $3,000 per working day before taxes. But this is in a perfect scenario. If the bus gets a flat tire, you can expect to pay $17,000 per tire. Replacement parts can range from a few $100s to $100,000. The list of expenses goes on. It is for these reasons and more the Ministry of Business has agreed to the fare hikes, according to Ms. Archer.
Some have blamed gas prices, but would you feel that then just to blame it on gas prices alone is too limited? Like it's actually multiple factors going on?
That would be correct, because gas prices is something that is on a rise in the world. So it would not just be the gas prices. A minibus runs on all four wheels, there's engine, these operational costs will go up exponentially every year based on different factors that no one in Guyana can control because there is no minibus factory here. So we had to take all of those things into consideration. The cost for parts, the cost for tire, and these kinds of things had to be taken into account. If you looked at it with gas just alone, you'd be only looking at it with one aspect of the entire running of a minibus because the bus does not run on gas alone. So that is why we had to take a holistic approach. It was difficult for us to understand as the consumer advocate how the operators would feel. That is why we needed to engage someone who had that background, and that was the United Minibus Union.
For the most part, the drivers are happy with the ministry's decision. So how do you feel about this increase?
Yeah, I feel good. I feel good because it's better for me. Because I'll be working all the time and getting no sort of money with the favor that in place to we. So this increase can give you a little more better option to get the money on the road.
So that definitely you get more trips and all that, or like
no, not really trips and all. It's that the gas is raising and we don't get fare increase. So if we get a fare increase now, we accept that. We're glad for that.
Honest with you, the increase drew a long time, right? And the $20 is not about just the gas, right? You got a lot of expense to deal with when maintenance is concerned with these machines. You understand? And remember now every year, prices keep going up for these parts. So, they ain't bleeding nobody. I understand, like, if I understand the situation when school opened, they said from the force, right? But I won't really be pressuring anybody, really, who could afford it. That's it.
But while the drivers are happy with it, how about the passengers? Most said no, except for this one. Her support of it is purely economic.
I think the giving the bus drivers them a $20 is not good enough. But you have to look at the economic of the country, right? Mm-hmm. A little more they could be able to get. Understand?
Oh, so you feel like the increase should be actually a little bit more?
Yes, I think, but even and as a person blind, I traveling, I find some people don't give the money, but I make sure this your pay, give the amount of money, whatever I have to pay. I don't hold back. $240 or whatever, I pay my money. But some the passengers, some don't like to pay whatever, but they would rather go and pour that money out, and rather than giving a $20 or a $40 before the pricing raise. Some persons were taking the money, and then they just got a big argument and just come out and cuss up and all of them.
But most are against the fare hike, not because of money, but because of the minibus culture in Georgetown, just as Mr. Andrews explains.
You see, everything that I did, I took into consideration, more or less the commuters, not even the bus people, because this sector is fueled by greed, indiscipline, and corruption. I'm telling you straight up. I am more involved or take back to try to change the culture. The police ain't helping, because if it is changed, they can't make money. So it wasn't a thing we want to kill the passengers here. It's that the government got to do their part.
Minibuses are the main form of transportation for many urban Guyanese, but to call it a public transportation system would not be completely accurate. The buses are privately owned, and while it will transport you, it's too disorganized to truly call it a system. Worse yet, over the years, minibuses have been involved in dozens of accidents, leaving many casualties in their wake. Speeding is a common feature in almost all of these accidents. And, for the most part, the attitudes of many of the drivers, conductors, and touts have struck fear into the hearts of many passengers, other drivers, and seemingly even the police. This leads to many issues regarding enforcement. This lack of enforcement, in Andrew's opinion, allows for the culture of lawlessness to be so pervasive. I have an idea of why do you feel like this is not being enforced, even though this is something that would clearly be for the benefit of the public?
Sometimes answer to that question, many instances it may appear as though one may be bashing the police force and these kind of things. I need to make it clear that there are very good policemen out there. But because, most of the policemen come out of the environment that with the persons they have to deal with. And they come out of an environment where they seem to bring the environment with them, even though they become police persons. Let's say that I'm living in the Penitence or Rhineville area. There may be some culture to that environment that would have been inherited, or people say it's normal to that environment, but you go into the police force, you've been trained, but inherent in your genes seem to be this desire to not leave the environment where you came out of. And that's where I think we have enforcement. I have seen, we call them buses that go into the line, toe the line, conform to the rules. Then there's these hot plate buses that would come outside there. And these buses will be pulling outside there. And there are some policemen would stand up right there and see them pulling and say nothing. Some policemen who may want to do something but realize for some reason it may cause them problems. I don't know from which angle. But just leave the area until these buses are filled and then they go back. I don't know why. There are many explanations that could be given for that. It may be true or false. But you can find that one of the buses in the line now may just let his wheel come out outside a little bit and they're arrested. But what happens there is that this lawlessness will always be there because I am prepared to stay in the line. I'm prepared to obey the law. But if I do that, I get nothing. So I'm going to take my chances. And when they take their chances and it works for them, they continue to take their chances. But I'm wondering if lawlessness and what takes place there, is more or less designed to benefit certain people. But, we live here. We hear things, we see things, but we have to hope that that is not true, even though we would be stuck in our consciences sometimes.
Wow, yes, because it seems that this is a very difficult situation, especially in terms of now hearing this. It sounds like drivers who want to not necessarily, they want to toe the line, that they don't want to necessarily conform to a system of lawlessness, are almost intimidated by others. And now it sounds like maybe even some of the junior ranks and the police may even be intimidated by some of these persons. So I guess where does this leave us to when the people who are supposed to protect us are even scared to...
I've been told of persons, the junior rank would have arrested them and a call is made. All these things we've heard. Some of them are true. And, these buses, we also feel that some of these drivers are too young to be driving in this sector. I don't think they would have had enough experience to be transporting persons, responsible for people's lives. I think there should be a time, age limit, years of driving, would have gone through some hospitality training or this kind of thing, and that's what we are advocating, because you go into a bus now that you could be, not knowing if you're going to reach where you're going to reach back home. As serious as that. And I've had complaints from persons who would have said to me, man, people drive in a certain way. They would have highlighted the fact that, sorry, you're driving. Person even listen to them. There may be some passengers in the bus who would, become abusive if you make the observation, Chinese always seem to be in a hurry to go someplace, and that's because they're always late from home.
Because of lax enforcement of laws, the lawless minibus culture was allowed to flourish throughout the years. While the system has been dominated by private operators since the 1950s, the devolution of the culture only began in most recent decades, at least according to Usman Ali, a conductor of 21 years.
System the law. The law at them. We are the park, so people, number of people, they come 1, 2, 3, 4, over that.
While he couldn't tell me who was responsible for the scrapping of the system, he shared the view that change is needed, a contention the drivers support as well.
Here it is, iron up, everything is run smooth. But once you ain't got iron up, what's happening? If you live with your wife and your children, and you and she don't make you feel like, what happened in the house? Is that right? So everything got the iron up. If you ain't got the iron, there's chaos. And this is what's going on out there, chaos.
And so, what are some things that you would want to see done that could probably improve the situation?
Like I said, tell you, put back the system in place where you got the iron up.
Another driver of 19 years also sees the disorder that currently exists.
Yeah, we got some disorder going on with the system. Mostly, to me, like it's told them causing a set of corruption on this bus thing is right now. Told them car. Used to be in the line, a bus company had plate, told gone out there and load them, we gotta wait return.
And so nobody's doing anything about that?
Nobody ain't doing none but it. This is what we looking at. See, we got conductor, we don't have to get it out. You understand? But you told them nobody doing nothing but it. They said that they keep coming all the time. Because it's an option for them.
Now, oh yes, how much do you pay a tout for every load?
Well, the tout totally decidedly. I know you're supposed to pay one fare, passenger fare, but now you got to pay them 2 passenger fare.
So you actually
the demand is if you don't pay them, they're falling in your bus.
So now you have to pay like 200 basically?
Yeah, like 200, 160. And then thing they're demanding it. Cause I know a tout here is no problem, but a tout supposed to collect 1 passenger fare. When I pay a tout 2 passenger fare, me making nothing when I go up.
Because I know I was speaking with the minibus union head, and he said that he really feels like the only people who are really making money in this business are the owners and the touts. You agree with that?
The owner?
The Ian Andrews, the minibus union head. He said, in his opinion, he feels the only people who make money in this business are the owners of the buses and the touts.
Yeah, real, true. Minibus driver and conductor carry a hard time when the day come, real hard time. Wherever we make one a day, when we don't pay we target and chewing back gas, we let back, we have to accept it. Because we need to work. You understand?
So you're working hard, you make, and every day you bring in maybe something like 20, maybe 30, but you only get to take home.
Yeah, like 4,000, sometimes I get 5,000, depends on how the road run. Yeah, but I feel it's fair increase, they're going to do better for me.
So,
yeah.
So you've been in this for years, and you've seen it can be kind of difficult at times. So why do you keep doing it?
No, I just have to work. I have 4 children, I have to work. I have a family to take care of, just can't run away from this. There's an honest living and doing. Yeah. So I gotta continue doing it until I can do better.
Several drivers have blamed touts for much of the issues in the system. While not legal, persons still engage in the practice and many drivers continue to use their service. As said before, enforcement of the law is an issue. Bad behavior exhibited by touts, drivers, and conductors are things that make the issue for fare hikes unpalatable. However, the Ministry of Business believes that there is a powerful set of enforcers who are not utilizing their power: the consumers themselves. Enter the Code of Conduct. According to the Consumer Affairs Department, the Code of Conduct is intended to be the passenger's tool in standing up for their rights.
It's important for consumers to understand that the Code of Conduct is necessary. This Code of Conduct is going to inform the operators how they need to be in this public space, and it's going to inform the consumers of their rights and their responsibilities. We want consumers to understand, yes, you have a right to be seated in a bus that is going to be safe, that is going to take you from point A to point B without all the little nuisances that you would have to be bothered with. Bus operators need to take you safely. They need to ensure that the bus is safe, the physical structure of the bus is safe. For example, if you go into the bus, you should not come out with torn ligaments. You shouldn't come out with torn clothes. The bus driver and the conductor should be courteous at all times. Now, these are some of the things that, whereas you would want to think as human nature, people would have these systems in place also, it still needs to be put in pen to paper, basically, so that everybody will understand what needs to be done at all times.
So, is there a place where I guess I, as a bus rider, can find the code of conduct?
Well, the ministry is currently in the process of formalizing that code of conduct because it will take cross-agency collaboration to get the code of conduct running. It will take collaboration with us, the Ministry of Public Security. It will take collaboration with the United Minibus Union to get this code of conduct up and ready for the public to get. What we're doing right now is in the final stages of formalizing what the code should be, and if making sure that the laws of Guyana can hold this code, because what you don't want is to put a code in place that cannot be substantiated by the laws of Guyana. We want to make sure that that system is in place. So the final stages of the consultations is currently ongoing.
The public be involved in these consultations?
Definitely, the code will go out into the public forum via all forms of media, and the public is always advised, if there's anything in the code of conduct that you do not like, that you'd like to see change it, engage with us. The biggest power of a consumer is your power to negotiate as a collective. Consumers need to understand that that is your right. You have the right to come together and understand what your role is as a consumer. Nothing can get done without the consumer interest. Your interest is important. Do not argue separately. Come together with a plan that is feasible, that makes sense. So if there's something in the code of conduct that you're not satisfied with, when we put it out, because look, it is not written in stone, it is a fluid thing. It will change and ebb over time, because there are going to be different things that are going to come up in the traveling day that we may not know about, that the consumer then can inform us, and then we'll be able to address.
So, some persons have, well, of course, there have been all these high-profile incidents, buses flying into trenches, accidents, the general behavior of these conductors as a whole, and even the drivers. Now, some persons, they will complain to each other, but I guess they don't really know where to complain to. So, what would a person do if they have an issue or they see these problems?
Everything that deals with transportation goes through the Ministry of Public Security, because they have in their regulations how buses should operate. They provide the fitness, they provide the different legislation responsible for buses and how buses work. Now, if it is a simple thing, if you see something, say something. Go to the local police station, write down the bus number. You understand me? That information then is given to someone at the police station for the specific zone, and they will be able to do what they need to do to get that matter rectified. It is not a situation where the Ministry of Business per se is going to do all the policing. It is going to be a collaboration with the police.
If the fares are to increase, the consumer must demand better service, meaning minibus operators must learn to treat their passengers with respect. If they do not, Andrews feels the government may take drastic measures to bring the operators into line.
May do that may well affect every person in this sector.
So, more or less, if they don't get in line, that the government might just take over and put them in line, you feel?
Put them in line. You understand? And how that will be done may be very draconian from a certain perspective. I don't know how they will be able to handle that. So let's do what we have to do. Let the government know that even though they behave the way They are deep inside decent people. So let a decency come out. Let's work.
The increase in fares is expected to bring some financial relief to minibus operators in Georgetown, while the Code of Conduct is expected to improve the quality of service provided to passengers. In essence, this agreement between the Ministry of Business and the United Minibus Union is intended to elevate the state of public transportation in Guyana. However, the enforcement of this will require the involvement of police, drivers, conductors, touts, and passengers. Nonetheless, the fare hike will be enforced, but one must ask, given the culture of silence that exists, will passengers hold drivers to the rules of the Code of Conduct and demand better service? Better service, but for a few bucks more.